Episode 201, To Become the Strongest. The students left the room one by one. It was their day off and they didn't want to hang around in the assembly hall any longer. Most of them were leaving with a smile on their faces, excited about the upcoming event. Jack informed the students about his plans to be at the intermilitary base event. They were now eager to impress him and wanted to start practicing right away. It would be a shortcut to the top if Jack extended them an invitation to join his family. Usually, unless one was extremely talented, they would have to build a reputation for themselves from their factions and work their way up. Nearly everyone who wished to become a traveler had a goal of joining the Big Four. Even if you created your faction, it was beneficial to work under one of the Big Four for protection from the others. However, not all the students had smiling faces as they left the hall. Some didn't feel the same way. "Hey, but you move," a student said as he accidentally bumped into Quinn on his way out. "What was wrong with that guy?" another student said. Quinn hadn't moved, but he wasn't the only one who had remained motionless. After hearing the final name that had been called, the whole group was shocked at what they had heard. The final name was Aaron. As Logan waited outside, he realized the others hadn't come out with him, so he took a bite of his sandwich. Before he said, "Guys, come on, we need to start our plan straight away. I know this is a shock, but that shouldn't deviate us from the original plan. Instead of saving one, now we just need to save two." When Logan's words, the group quickly snapped out of it and made their way out of the assembly hall with everyone else. Worrying about it or thinking about why Aaron was chosen wasn't going to do them any good. The more time wasted, the less likely the plan would work. The students, whose names were announced, went to the front of the stage, wondering what was about to happen. Peter was also up front, but his expression hadn't changed much. He was informed of what was going to happen and wasn't worried about it. He trusted his master Quinn. He would just follow his master's instructions and trust his judgment to make everything right. Erin, on the other hand, was panicking. Her head was spinning. "They picked me, but why? Aren't I one of the top students? They would never pick a student as good as me, right?" she thought to herself. But the realization had hit her, and her mask was starting to crumble away. The thoughts and memories she had kept within were starting to surface. A few days ago, inside the second year's head office, Duke had been given a bunch of files that matched the criteria they were looking for. That's when he stumbled upon Aaron's file. "Now this is interesting," he said. Erin was a level 5 student, and she also had quite an expensive ability too. She wasn't an original, but the ice element ability was expensive to get a hold of, especially at level 5, so Duke wondered why she hadn't been selected. After reading the file, everything made sense. Her family worked under one of the Big Four, and they had established a shelter on one of the Orange Portal planets. Because of the risk involved, the family had paid them well, and had gained quite the status. A few years had gone by, and it looked like the exploration of the planet was nearly over. It was the main task that had been given to her family. They had done a good job getting rid of the few advanced tier beasts that lived on the place. Erin was eventually sent back to Earth to finish her normal school education. She went to a good private school, as her parents could afford it, and even bought her a strong ability. It was an opportunity that they never had. The exploration of the planet had been completed, and Erin had gone back over the summer to celebrate with her parents. At last, they had moved up high enough in the family's ranks to obtain a place back on Earth. But on that fateful day, a Dalki ship had invaded the planet. The Dalki came and attacked. Seeing her family and friends raise their weapons to fight, she wanted to help too. But before she could even join in the fight, her father had stopped her. "No, Erin, you are not strong enough yet. Now get out of here," he screamed. "But I can help," Erin cried. "Just let me help you. Look, I didn't want to say this, but you're weak. You will only get in our way." And at that moment, she witnessed her father being stabbed in the chest. As she stood there frozen, one of her father's old friends managed to rescue her. Her family did their best to protect all the civilians on the planet, and even other factions that they once squabbled over territory had come to help. But it wasn't enough, and all they could do was wait for help to arrive. At this point, nearly everybody that could fight had died. All of this havoc had been created by only 2 Dalki. However, the defenders had managed to kill one of them, but the other remained alive. The remaining Dalki had set its eyes on the emergency shelter, but just as it was about to attack, help arrived. A female dressed in pure sparkling white came through the portal. Erin saw her pass by. She fought against the Dalki on her own, and was able to go toe-to-toe with it. The swordsmanship that had been displayed was light and silent. It was as if her feet never even touched the floor. She would continuously parry the Dalki's attacks, while dishing out attacks of her own in between, until eventually she defeated it, and the Dalki had died. Erin cried a lot that day. Her tears wouldn't stop coming. She cried for all the people that had been lost. The woman who had defeated the Dalki walked up to Erin, but unlike what the others thought should be said to a child, she didn't give any words of comfort to Erin, but only gave her the harsh truth. If you ever want to see your family or friends die again, then you have to become stronger. You have to be the best, so nobody can take anything away from you, because your tears won't bring your family and friends back. And that was the last time Erin had seen her family, or the strange female warrior. She had been selected because she no longer had the status her family once had. With everyone gone, she had been sent a token gesture of money from one of the big four, just enough for her to live off of for the rest of her life, but the political protection their family had was now gone. But what was the use? Money couldn't bring back the dead. The only thing that remained in her mind from that day were the words spoken to her by that strange woman. She would become the best. Erin had chosen to live by those words that day, and whenever she felt tired or wanted to give up, that same memory would come back to her. She needed proof that what she was doing was working. She thought she had gotten better, but the day they had met the Dalki once again, she had frozen in place, and the only thing she could do was run. Right now, though, she was being led together with the others to a certain room. Everything she had worked for up to this point was all going to be taken away. Following closely behind the row of students was the mechanical spider Logan had sent after them. Right now, Logan had returned to his room, and he was monitoring the direction of the spider. He could see where they were heading, and would be able to inform the others of what needed to be done. He was also looking at a 3D map of the whole school. On it, there were several different indicators, each one being a different person from their group. The spider and Peter were different colors, for clarity's sake. Okay, Fax. It looks like they're heading for one of the meeting rooms, located on the second floor of the west side. Layla, you stay close behind him. Once you turn and reach the end of the corridor, stay and wait in position. The two guards were stuck to Jack like glue. When Quinn and Borden are ready, I will give the command and you guys will move out. Understood, everyone? Understood, they replied. Jack entered the meeting room followed by the 8 students. One of his guards had also entered the room with them, while the other stayed outside, guarding the door. Quinn and Borden were at one side of the corridor, while Fex and Layla were at the other side, patiently waiting for Logan's order. All right, Rayton, Borden said. Looks like you're up. Episode 202, Falling Asleep. In the meeting space, the 8 selected students were all lined up in one row. They stood straight, nervously, all the while thinking just why they had been chosen to meet Jack Truedream. Concurrently, Erin was doing everything to keep her cool. As she looked to her left, she could see Peter standing calmly beside her. Of course, he didn't have to worry about anything since his powers wouldn't be taken away. However, it was different for her. She constantly moved her head trying to see if she can escape. Although none of them were planning to sit down, there was a chair behind each of the 8 students. Perhaps they would be asked to sit, the further they stayed inside the room. It was a small meeting room, used for one-on-one consultations. Currently, the students were standing in the center, while Jack was standing just in front of the desk with a single chair. Lingering by his side was the small guard dressed in green armor. The main problem in the escape plan was a large group of guards stationed right outside the door. Erin knew that the others were planning to get Peter out of the situation, for the sole reason that they had to if they wanted to keep their matter with Quinn a secret. But now, she wished she had stayed in the meeting room, so she would know what their plans were. Maybe she could have helped. Now, you might be wondering why you have all been brought here in front of me today, said Jack. It seems like either one way or another, you have been suspected of a dangerous crime, though I do not know what the crime is. Perhaps a part of secret terrorist group plotting to go against the military. However, it is not my job to find that out, because that's the school's responsibility. Halting his speech, Jack slammed his hand on the table to inculcate the gravity of the situation to the students. He resumed his talk again. The punishment that has been handed to you is to have your abilities taken away. As soon as Jack said those words, a couple of students dropped to their knees, complaining, "But I didn't do anything, this can't be right." Some of them cried, while one student, who was closest to the exit, dashed towards the door. Before he could even take a few steps, he felt a stinging pain on the back of his neck. His head started to swirl, and his vision slowly began to fade, until he suddenly collapsed on the floor. "Oh my gosh, is he dead?" a student cried. The others were unable to see it because of how fast everything had happened, but Aaron had seen it all. The green guard had taken out what looked like a small needle and swirled it inside his mouth with his tongue. Now, laced with a tiny amount of what looked like green liquid, it was catapulted right at the student's nape. "I hope nobody else tries that again," Jack said. "This process is meant to be quick and painless. Now, please sit down on the seats behind you. I don't want there to be any more accidents." Each of the students did as they were told. They carefully watched the guard lift the student who was passed out onto one of the empty chairs. This was a deal-breaker for Erin. She had to do something, otherwise she would lose her ability forever. Hence, with a resolute countenance, she faced Jack and uttered, "But we didn't do anything, sir," Erin said. "If you do this, people will find out about your made-up lies. We can just tell everyone the truth." "Oh, don't you worry about that. Once I take your abilities away, you shall all pay a special visit to the dungeon. The school will then report to the rest." "What was it that you said?" "Right, made-up lies. The most common one and accepted is usually you are all working for Pure. With that, the student's curiosity will disappear, and with it, your existence." The green armored guard from earlier then started to walk over to the students. Aaron was second to last along the row, while Peter was sitting at the very end. The guard had prepared some green liquid that was placed in some type of vial. He proceeded to place the liquid on the tip of his finger. Using his index, he would place it right between the eyebrows, just above the nose of the students. Then, after a few seconds, the student would fall asleep. "A sleeping ability?" Aaron mumbled. "Ding ding ding. Like I said, I'm not a monster. Although by the time that you guys wake up, you will already be in the dungeon." The guard had gone through the other students, and it was finally Erin's turn. For a while now, she had been fumbling with something behind her back, waiting for Jack to get close, but he never did. He always kept his distance. When the guard went to place his finger on her head, she immediately swung out her arm, aiming for his temple. In her hand was a small dagger that had been formed from ice. She knew the guard was strong and fast, but a blow with a sharp object would be able to take down most people, no matter who they are. To her dismay, the guard didn't react at all. He continued with his task, placing his finger on her forehead. Nevertheless, just before the dagger reached his head, with his other hand, he had grabbed it and crushed it to pieces. The speed was too fast, so she had never thought that it was possible to block an attack that closely, unless one had a speed ability. Still, she was sure that he was the one who had produced the sleeping agent. It was most likely from his blood, which was why he had pricked the needle against his tongue. Someone couldn't have two abilities unless they were like Vorden. This solely meant one thing. The beast gear he was wearing was at such a high level that it would boost the user's stats to the point where they no longer seemed human. Accordingly, she was not able to resist, and a few seconds later, she was asleep like all the others. Finally, it came to Peter's turn. Willingly, before the man had even placed his finger on his forehead, he had closed his eyes. He knew that just looking at these people would annoy him, but he needed to follow Master Quim's order. Hence, he decided to keep them shut for now. Once the green liquid was placed on his head, all the students were ready. Jack then looked at the green guard and cleared his throat out loud, signaling for the guard to leave. "As you wish, sir," he said, bowing down, and left the room. Now, standing outside as guard on duties, just by the door, were the two guards. "Did he make you leave again?" the large guard asked. "Yeah, I don't know why. We all know his ability works," the green man replied. The mechanical spider remained inside the room while Peter's watch recorded everything. Logan was unsure whether the second guard would ever leave the room. Yet, for some reason, it seemed like Jack had asked him to. This would make their job easier, but they had to act now. "Everyone go! Both guards are outside and only Mr. True Dream and the students are inside." Episode 203, Stolen Abilities. The group outside had received a message from Logan to proceed. The first ones to make a move would be Fex and Layla. They had been on standby waiting for the signal. Right behind the two of them were two random first-year students who had been brought along. These students were the same ones from Fex's room, his roommates. If it was anyone else being put in this situation, Fex probably would have felt guilty about what he was trying to make them do. But they were the ones who had attacked him first for no reason, so he couldn't think of any two more students to use. A slight tint of red could be seen in their eyes. When Fex commanded them, they started to glow slightly. A few seconds later, they were on the move. The two students turned around the corner and started to bump into each other. While this was happening, Fex would peek around the corner while twiddling his fingers. Eventually, the bumps turned into shoves as they continued their stride. "Hey, what are you doing? Get out of here," the larger guard said. But his words were useless, as the two were starting to shove each other more harshly than before, although it seemed a bit strange, since there was no speech involved while performing these actions. This was the limit to Fex's mind control, since more complex instructions will result in breaking the spell. The shoving had turned into a full-blown fistfight. While doing so, they would inch their way closer to the two guards. "If you guys don't scram out of here, my foot is going to be shoved right into your arse," the guard shouted this time. They continued to ignore the guard's words, but it was more like they couldn't hear. Their mind was consumed with the last command by Fex. Arms and legs were swinging out as the two continued to fight. Right now, Fex was dwindling his fingers away faster than before, concentrating while the sweat ran down his forehead. Controlling one person's set of movements with the strings was easy, but coordinating two and making it look realistic was tough. He had attached strings to both of the students and given them the command to remain motionless, so everything they were doing right now was controlled by him. While everything was happening, Layla was to keep guard, making sure no one came down the hallway and saw them. Now the two were fighting incredibly close, and Fex had to pull one of his strings ever so slightly, causing an elbow to hit the large guard in the middle of his stomach. "Huh? Did it not hit? But I'm sure it did." Fex was slightly confused. He tugged on the string again, a little bit harder this time, elbowing the guard in the stomach again. Still, there was no reaction. Although the elbow had hit the large man, there seemed to be no reaction whatsoever. This was because of the heavy armor the man was wearing. However, even though the attack didn't hurt, the rage on his face was visible. "You two! It's time for them to get out of here." Pulling the strings back, Fex started to dash down the hallway. The students began to imitate Fex's movements and ran off as well, following his direction. The large guard followed them, but was quite slow with his heavy gear. It seemed like one of the attributes it gave was not speed. Some users would choose to focus on a set of beast armor that specialized in one area. They would do this to make up what they were lacking for, or to strengthen their abilities. Layla saw the students dashing towards the hallway right around the corner following Fex, who ran down the same hallway seconds ago, which meant soon the bulky guard would soon follow them around the same corner. Next to her was a door leading to a classroom. It was a Sunday, and nearly all the classrooms were empty as the staff and most of the students had a day off. Oh no! With nothing else to do, she went for the closest room, opening the door and stepping inside. She took a deep breath and held it in. The sound of the large guard's footsteps could be heard as he ran around the corner to chase the two students. Once the footsteps could no longer be heard, she stepped out of the room again. As she turned to look around the corner, she noticed there was still another problem. The second guard was still standing outside. As long as he was there, Vorden and Quinn wouldn't be able to get inside. She looked around to see if there was anything she could do. The only thing she could see was a plant pot down the hallway. Lifting it with her telekinesis ability, she started to levitate it in the air and floated it across the hall towards the green guard. The guard spotted it floating about, slowly coming towards him, but he remained there still. When the pot was finally in front of his face, he lashed out, smashing it and allowing it to drop to the floor, yet he still hadn't moved from his position. "Looks like I'm just going to have to kick his arse," Brayton said. "No, Vorden, this whole plan, we need you to cause the biggest distraction inside, you know that," Quinn said. "Leave this guy to me." Inside the meeting room, Jack was preparing himself. He straightened up the tie on his suit and then licked his lips, making sure they weren't too dry. "This is the worst part," Jack said. He walked up to the first student and bent down, so the two were at eye level. His head was now right next to the student's. Grabbing the person by the head, he pulled it forward, pressing his lips against theirs. Subtly, Jack could feel the energy from the student entering his body. After 30 seconds or so, Jack removed his lips from the student's mouth. He then spat on the ground and wiped his lips with his sleeve. "Damn it, why did my ability have to work in such a way?" Jack said annoyingly. The only way Jack was able to take the ability of another was to forcefully drain it from their mouths. He had tried and tested multiple ways, but for some reason, this was the only way that worked. Some of the stronger abilities seemed to have certain restrictions, similar to Vorden, who had to touch the other user, and how it would only last up to 24 hours. Still, there was nothing he could do about it, so he continued to go down the line, pressing his lips against each student, draining their abilities. After each ability had been drained, he could feel them lingering around inside his stomach. Each of the forces was like little flames, all different from another. Finally, he had reached Aaron. "Now here is someone I don't mind pressing my lips against," Jack said, as he looked at Aaron's delicate face and realized she was a true beauty. It was a shame she was still young, otherwise he would have taken her back with him. The energy flowed through Aaron's body and slowly entered Jack's. While doing so, he could feel a slightly cold sensation. When he removed his lips from her, an icy breath was seen. Her ability had been taken, and it now remained inside of Jack. Now there was only one student who remained, and that was Peter. As Jack looked at him, he realized that Peter wasn't an attractive sight at all. His face was sunken in, and he looked dehydrated, almost like he was already dead. If he didn't see him moving earlier, he would have thought he was dead. "All right, last one." Jack then moved his face closer to Peter. He closed his eyes as he went to press his lips. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Peter said. His eyes were wide open, and he was staring at Jack, who was standing right in front of his face. "You're awake, but how? I saw him use the sleeping agent on you," Jack shouted as he backed away. He panicked and quickly hid behind the desk. "Teddy, get in here right now, one of them is awake," Jack shouted, very much panicked and frightened. A situation like this had never happened before. Just as Kenny was about to open the door, a shadow raised from underneath, blocking his path. Episode 204, Saving. A strange shadow rose from the bottom of the door, completely covering it. After a few seconds, it looked like some type of shadow hand had formed, reaching out to Kenny, the guard in green beast gear. He quickly reacted, taking a few steps back, not allowing the hand to touch him. He had never seen anything like it before, so he made sure to be cautious. It was a phenomenon unknown to him, so first, he needed to find out what it did before he could act accordingly. He took a single needle and swirled it around in his mouth before throwing it towards the shadow. But when the needle hit, strangely enough, there seemed to be no reaction at all. "What is this thing? Is it some kind of ability?" This was not good. Judging by the screams inside, it was clear that one of the students was still awake. If they were using their ability right now, it could be the end of the True Dream family. Of course, it was Quinn. He had used his Shadow Cloak ability to sneak up to the remaining guard in the hallway, and when he heard Jack True Dream screaming for help, he had decided to distract the guard, to give Vorden a chance to sneak into the room and take care of Jack. When he started his Shadow Control ability, he had to drop his Shadow Cloak, so the guard was going to notice him any second now. The guard looked around to see if there was any other way into the room, and that's when he spotted someone. A man dressed in a black suit of armor, wearing a demon mask, covering his face. Even the top of his head was covered, showing him the jagged white mechanical eyes of the suit. "Is it you?" the guard asked. He knew he had to get inside quickly because of the main weakness his boss had, which was that he couldn't use the abilities he took from others. He was only able to give them to other people. So at the moment, he was defenseless without his guards. Quinn said nothing in response and started to dash forward, bringing the shadow from the door back to him, and it was now hovering above him. The guard saw this and immediately threw several needles, but the shadow managed to block them all. Quinn quickly moved aside, pulling the shadow close to him, allowing the needless to pass through and continue down the hallway. "Damn it, this is the problem going up against an original." The guard was right. One of the main advantages one would have in a fight was knowing the ability of the other, using the information Logan had given him and his inspection skill. Quinn knew he couldn't afford to get hit by those needles. He wasn't sure if his suit was strong enough to block them, so he would keep the shadow close to himself for protection. When the guard saw that his needles were ineffective, he quickly pulled out his dagger. He was waiting for Quinn to get close. However, when they were around 9 meters apart, Quinn jumped into the air, spinning his body, and then threw out a kick from the side. Flood crescent kick. A large crescent-shaped line of red aura came out, strong and fast. The man had never expected this. He thought because the shadow was only used for defense so far, it would now be used for an attack. So he was keeping a keen eye on the shadow's movements. But instead, it looked like his opponent was using a completely different ability. He could do nothing but take the attack head-on. When the aura was directly in front of him, he struck at the red aura, which then shattered and disappeared. Quinn stood still for a moment. His new skill was one of his strongest attacks in comparison to others. The only one stronger was his blood hammer. Still, the person in front of him was easily able to shatter it with his weapon, and there didn't seem to be a chip or anything on it. Right now, Quinn had to be incredibly cautious if he was to get out of here alive. What he didn't know was that at the same time, the guard in green gear was having similar thoughts. What was that attack? It was so powerful, he thought. His hand was feeling numb from the impact of the blow, and it had taken a decent amount of strength for him to shatter that red aura. Who are you? You should know who we are. Why are you attacking? The guard tried to distract Quinn. Quinn spoke into the mask, which gave him an altered, deep electronic voice. We know what you have been doing. We know Pure have been following your actions for a while now. We are here to save those kids from you, Quinn said. Right now he was improvising on the spot, and Logan was helping him with what to say. The reason why Logan thought this would be their best option was since they wouldn't run an investigation on those closest to the kids. In a way, it was true that Pure had informed them of Mr. True Dream's plans, but they weren't the only ones taking action. Knowing this, they were less likely to think someone associated with the kids were trying to save them. Come on, Vorden, hurry up, Quinn thought. While Quinn was busy dealing with the guard, Vorden had snuck past and entered the room. Or rather, it was Rayton who was in control now. He was using an invisibility ability he took earlier, so he couldn't be seen. As he entered the room, he saw the students slumped over in their chairs, and Jack hiding behind the desk, while Peter was in front of him, just looking at him. Go away or you will regret this, Jack shouted. Are you threatening me? Peter asked, and for the first time, a sinister smile appeared on his face. You know if it wasn't for my master's orders, you would be dead by now. I knew you were working for someone. Tell me who it is and I'll spare you, Jack said, his voice still feeling a little shaky. Suddenly, Logan had an urgent message. Guys, the guard chasing Fex has given up and is now on his way back. You have to grab them and get out of there, now! Rayton then went to the corner of the room near one of the wooden shelves and activated his fire ability, setting the whole thing alive with fire. Peter, grab Aaron and get out of here! Quinn's orders! Rayton shouted. Peter did as he was told. Picking up Aaron, he quickly ran out of the room, but before Rayton left, he stared at Jack. Rayton, what are you doing? I said not to touch him, Vorden said. You know we don't have a clue about how his ability works. If it's like ours and we touch him, we might even lose our own, and then we would be defenseless. Maybe Aaron's ability was taken, but if ours gets stolen as well, we would become useless. I wasn't going to suggest that, Rayton said. I think we should kill him here and now. That way he will no longer be a problem. Episode 205, Result of No True Dream. The room was slowly heating up as the flames started to spread from one piece of furniture to the next. Soon the entire room would be engulfed. Peter had already left the room, carrying Aaron over his shoulder. He followed Logan's instructions, telling him where to go, making sure to avoid the hallway where Quinn and Kenny were fighting right now. The directions he was giving them were to his room. Right now, it was the safest place he could think of. Unlike the other rooms that had routine checkups now and then, Logan's room was different. It was off limits most of the time. This was a special request he made because of the number of different inventions he contained there. Afraid that someone would come in and possibly take on his ideas for profit. At this point, the smoke had hit the detectors above, and the sprinklers had been activated. However, the flames were too strong to completely get rid of the fire. It could only slow them down for now. Looking around the room, Jack could only see the students who were asleep in their chairs and was wondering what had caused the fire. However, when the sprinklers had turned on, the drops of water bouncing off Rayton formed a slight outline to be seen. Rayton not only had the abilities of fire, but of invisibility as well. The strange shape that Jack could see was standing right in front of him. If it wasn't for this, he would have dashed for the door. Rayton had suggested killing Jack, but Vorden knew this wasn't an option. The simple reason was the balance of the current world right now. If True Dream were to die, it would go back to what it was like after the war. When the war had ended, Earth was a mess. Ruined cities, a low population of animals, and a lot of the land had sunken into the sea. The whole human race had been struck with poverty. Only there was a big difference now. They had powers. This caused more war to happen than ever due to the lack of control. Eventually, the rise of the three families had come to create some type of order. But the relationship between the three of them wasn't the best either, and the fighting continued. The military had power, but they weren't strong enough. They would have many people switching sides between them and the three families. That's why when True Dream had come to them seeking support, it was a blessing. It was someone the military could use to keep everyone in place, and it was why the current system had been put in the first place. If True Dream was to be taken out of the picture, the military power would weaken, and the power balance would be upset, leading to another civil war. But that wasn't what worried Vorden the most. Civil wars happen, and in the end, there would often be a result. The problem was if the Dalki was to see us, if the humans were fighting each other, they would come to invade as soon as possible. For the sake of the current human race, True Dream was someone who needed to live, no matter how evil of a person he was. Vorden tried his best to explain this to Rayton, but right now he didn't care, since he was in charge. I disagree, Rayton said. If the human race can't survive without one person, then maybe we shouldn't be alive in the first place. Rayton had set his hand ablaze and threw a punch right towards Jack. All Jack could see right now was a floating arm of fire. He tried his best to move out of the way, but the attack was too fast. As his hand full of flames was about to hit, a slight reflection could be seen in front of Jack. What the? His hand had touched the reflection, and it felt like he was hitting a solid wall. A mysterious force then moved from the point where he had hit, and it seemed to bounce off right back at Rayton. "Hugo?" Jack said. As he turned his head, the large guard, wielding a two-handed axe, had entered the room. "Well, we know someone is getting a raise." "Damn." With nothing else left to do, Rayton quickly headed for the corridor. He didn't know Hugo's ability, nor how strong he was. He loved fighting, but wasn't crazy enough not to know when his chances were against him. "Hugo, the door!" Jack screamed. Hugo held out his hand, and another reflection appeared just in front of the door, but it was too late. Jack could see the figure moving through the sprinkler's water, and it was clear it was no longer in the room with them. "Damn it, you're too slow. Forget about that raise, let's get out of here." As Rayton ran down the hallway, he could see Quinn, still busy dealing with the green guard Kenny. "I'm leaving," he shouted. And that was the signal for Quinn to disappear as well. Using his shadow cloak skill, suddenly he disappeared right in front of Kenny's eyes. A few seconds later, Jack and Kenny came out of the room. "Where the hell are they? Find them now, and find that girl and the boy. I want them both dead, you hear me?" Jack shouted. Instead of listening to Jack's words, Kenny immediately ran back into the room they had exited from. He ignored both Jack and Hugo. The fire was still burning in the room, and the students were still asleep under his ability's effect. He lifted two of them on each shoulder and took them out of the room, placing them on the ground gently. He then did the same with the other four, and eventually, guards had arrived to help extinguish the fire. Jack then walked up to Kenny and whacked him across the face, giving him a big slap. "Did I ask you to save those students? You let them get away. If you don't have any information, you know what will happen to you." While looking at the kids all safe out of the room, Kenny had a smile on his face, although Jack was unable to see this due to the mask covering his mouth. "Sir, it seems like there were a few of them. I'm not sure how many, but there were at least two of them. They claimed to be from Pure and were trying to save the kids." "Pure? They've been telling me for months, but never acted out. This is a first for them. I thought I was safe here, so I didn't bring anything with me. We'll head back for now. I can't risk staying here any longer," said Jack. "But before we go, send a report to Duke. They want to save the kids that badly? Well, I won't let them have their way. If Duke is to find either of those two students, they are to be sent to me immediately, you understand?" "Yes, sir," they both said. As the three of them walked off, Logan's mechanical spider had done the same. He had listened to everything Jack uttered. After a few minutes, everyone returned to Logan's room. Vorden, Peter, Layla, Fex, Quinn, and Aaron were all inside, but Aaron was lying on the bed still under the sleeping spell. "We did it!" Layla shouted. "I can't believe we got them out of there." "Man, that big guy was scary," Fex said. "For a second I thought he wasn't going to give up. Also, he moved pretty quick for a big guy." "I wouldn't celebrate just yet, guys," Logan said. "It seems like we have a problem." Logan then played the recording of the mechanical spider. It stated that True Dream would order the school to bring Aaron and Peter back if they were found. They had hoped to claim they were from Pure, perhaps Jack would let the whole matter go and aim his anger at them. But it seemed to have the opposite effect. "So, what are you saying, Logan?" Vorden asked. "That we have to hide both Aaron and Peter forever? We can't do that in a military base. That's just not possible. Sooner or later it will slip up." The group remained silent as each one of them thought about what to do. So far, they had managed to come up with a plan to get out, but this seemed to be the most complicated one. It wasn't like they didn't think this would happen, but the problem was they had concentrated so much on saving their two friends, they didn't think about what to do after. Of course, the school wouldn't just let them go. They knew the truth about Jack, so the best case scenario was for them to end up in the dungeon. But now probably something even worse would happen to them if they were found out. Quinn's secret was kept, but at what cost? The anger of the Big Four. The loss of Aaron's ability. As Layla looked around the room, she could see everyone had a look of defeat on their face. Even the genius Logan hadn't come up with a solution. She then looked at Aaron, who was sleeping away, her dear friend who had looked out for her this whole time. Although Aaron might not have seen her as a friend, Layla did. She couldn't let Jack get her hands on her. There was only one thing she could think of to get them out of this. "Guys, I have a solution, but please, I don't want you to hate me after this," Layla said. Episode 206, Pure Be With You. Layla's hands were visibly shaking and her legs wobbled. Her heart was so pounding loudly that she couldn't even hear her voice. "Is this the right thing to do?" she thought. But she had already articulated those words. Right now, all attention was focused on her. "Why would we hate you, Layla?" Quinn said. "If you have anything that can help us get out of this situation, then it will be fine." Layla looked at Aaron on the bed one more time, contemplating if they'll understand or not. She finally decided to tell the others about her circumstances. "I know a place where a group of people will be able to keep her safe from all of this." She paused for a moment before saying the last words. "I'm from Pure. I was the one who wrote that letter." "I knew it," Vorden shouted. "Of course she was hiding something. Why else would she willingly help and accept the truth of your identity? They probably wanted to use you for some reasons." "That's not true," Layla snapped back. "They don't even know about Quinn. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for any of this," Layla said, as tears started to run down her face. Quinn then intervened, placing himself in between Layla and Vorden. Observing the situation, it seemed like Vorden was going to lash out at her any second if someone didn't interfere soon. He proceeded to lead her over to the bed and sat her down next to Aaron. "Sorry guys, but can someone explain to me what or who Pure is?" Fex said, bearing a confused look on his face as he stood in the corner of the room. "I'm glad you asked," Logan said, spinning his chair around to procure a file. Then he opened it while uttering, "I had prepared for this after I saw Layla dropping off the note in the morning." "You knew?" Vorden said, surprised. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Was it important to the mission?" Logan replied. "Regardless if she was part of Pure or not, it was thanks to her information that we were able to get those two out of there. True, she might have an ulterior motive, but why would she reveal herself now? There is no need to unless she truly wishes to help." Although Logan knew there was truth in his words, he couldn't help but think of the fact that she had kept it a secret for this long. It was contrary to Quinn's prompt revelation that he was a vampire. Something just didn't feel right about that, and the things he had heard about Pure weren't the best. In an instant, a projection was seen playing a myriad of different videos. It was mostly of people wearing a type of mask that covered their whole face, all with the figure of an angel that looked like it had its wings removed. It was the mark of Pure. The video showed multiple explosion attacks on certain buildings, and different factions were being conducted. It wasn't a pretty sight at all. "Let me warn all of you, What you are seeing now is pretty biased. The only information I can get about them is filtered through the military. However, nearly everyone knows the basics. Pure has only one goal, to get rid of all abilities. They believe that the world and the system currently in place are wrong. Even before abilities were introduced, many complained about the gap between the rich and the poor. However, they feel like now, even the basic human rights don't exist to those with weaker abilities, Logan explained. Which is pretty stupid if you ask me, Forden said. It was only thanks to those with abilities that we were able to battle the Dauki. If we get rid of them, what do they want us to do? There are only a few people who would be able to kill beasts without the use of abilities in the first place. To then later make equipment to fight them. That is, unless you're not human, of course. These reasons were why Vorden was so suspicious of Layla. It made sense to him. There exists a stronger being that didn't rely on abilities. Even though the vampires had different levels, Vorden wouldn't put it past Pure to not think ahead. Wait, there is something that I don't understand, Feck said. If Pure is a group of people who hate abilities and Layla is one of them, then why does she have an ability? They soon realized that Feck's words were true. It was a bit hypocritical of a group who hated abilities to have people within the place with them. Everyone then turned to look at Layla as they coveted to hear the answer. I didn't mean to deceive any of you. My situation here is quite complicated, Layla began to reason out. As Logan explained, you all know what our goal is. As of the moment, the world is in balance, but the main culprit of the system in place is the military. However, the only reason they can enforce the rules is because of True Dream. At the same time, True Dream is a blessing for Pure, since he's the only person that can take anyone's ability away. Layla sighed after her lengthy explanation as she gazed at every one of her comrades, continuing her speech after a few seconds. True Dream only visited this military base. We have agents stationed at every base so far, but only at this one did they never come back. Accordingly, they wanted a student to infiltrate it. And they sent a kid? Vorden explained. Seems like a good place to send Aaron then, doesn't it? I volunteered, Layla shouted, yet her eyes slightly twitched when she said those words. Because the truth was she didn't volunteer for this mission, but her mother offered her daughter for her benefit. Look, this isn't about me and Pure. This matters about Aaron. Right now she doesn't have an ability. True Dream has been known for doing this to people, and we've taken them in, though we still looked out for them. We will do the same for Aaron. Borden then dragged Quinn towards the side and whispered in his ear, You're not considering this, are you? For Aaron and Peter to go over to Pure? After hearing this, Quinn was struggling. He was pretty sure that Layla meant no harm, yet putting his friends in the hand of strangers and sending Peter would be a huge risk. His evil nature, without Quinn by his side, would take over. Moreover, if they ever found out who he was, it would be no better than the school finding it out. Nevertheless, it was different with Aaron. Henceforth, Quinn shifted his stare towards Logan, asking, Logan, don't you have everything recorded? Can't we just use that as blackmail against True Dream? Spread it on the internet or something? Impossible, Logan replied without delay. You remember the reports I brought up earlier? The military has a monopoly on what can be seen and what cannot. It would be taken down in an instant, and no one would want to host such a thing. They would be going up against two powerhouses. No one has the power to go up against them. I'm sorry, but I wouldn't even want to risk the safety of my family by angering them. When Logan enlightened the actuality, Vorden started to think about his own family. If it was them, they could do something about it. The sole problem was that he wasn't on good terms with them at all. No one in his family would listen to him, much more do him a favor. It wasn't the Blades family way. It was why he had never considered it to be an option in the first place. I think we have no other choice, Quinn said. The best thing for Aaron will be to go over to Pure. The two of them are close, and if Layla wanted to hurt any of us, the last person she would hurt would be Aaron. Wait, only Aaron? Layla inquired. But what about Peter? He can come too. Quinn shook his head as he looked at Peter. He can't, and Borden and Fex probably already know the reason why, Quinn explained. Peter is changed. Layla, if he isn't next to me, then there's no telling what he would do. Layla then looked at Peter. Although his physical appearance had changed a little, she hadn't been around him lately to notice any further changes. Still, when she looked into his eyes, she noticed that they were lifeless. Okay, so Aaron goes to Pure, Borden stated. What about Peter? Quinn's mind was already muddled as he tried to think of solutions. But at that moment, he was out of ideas. The only thing they could do was to hide him for as long as possible, or they could opt to utilize Vorden's favorite suggestion. Quinn, we could always— Don't say it, Vorden. Quinn cut him off shortly before he finished his sentence, knowing very well what Vorden was going to suggest. I believe I have a solution to your problem with Peter, the system said. Episode 207, A New Ability. Just when Quinn was in the middle of contemplating what to do with Peter, it seemed like the system had an answer. Although, whenever the system seemed to chime in, it was never usually straight-up good news, so he was a little nervous. What do you mean, you have an idea for Peter? Quinn asked. The main issue right now is the fact that your faces cannot appear in the school anymore. At the same time, Peter won't be able to leave the military base due to the fear of him running wild. But we have one solution available for Peter that will solve both of these problems, the system explained. Now, Quinn was waiting for the worrisome part. He can learn a transformation ability. Ever since you turned him, he lost his original powers, and his body is now different from what it once was, meaning he can now learn another ability. But I thought you said we had to find a specific ability for vampires that could be learnt, just like I learnt the Shadow Book. At the time, not a single one reacted when I touched it, only the Shadow one did, Quinn asked. Perhaps I need to remind you once again. What I said was, there are certain abilities that only vampires can learn, and at the same time, there are abilities that only humans can learn. However, some abilities are in the middle, somewhere in between, and one of them is the transformation ability. The transformation ability wasn't a popular ability with the general public. It gave the user nothing extra that could aid them in combat. Therefore, it was looked down upon by a lot of people. Still, it did have its uses. With the transformation ability, one could alter their face and look like another. This meant it was often used for infiltration or spying. The problem was, whenever these people were discovered, they would be killed in an instant because transformation ability does not grant them any offensive capabilities at all, or even defensive. Why didn't you suggest this before? Quinn asked. Before, I felt like it would be more beneficial for you to wait for a more powerful ability to pop up, one that would make you and Peter stronger. But right now, it's more important than anything. It would prevent Peter from being caught, the system explained. Quinn then explained to the others what his plan was with Peter, how he still hadn't learned an ability, so he could still learn the transformation ability. Still, there was one problem with the whole thing, and that relied on Logan. Quinn needed Logan's help. Even if Peter could disguise himself, if he appeared as a new student, the entire school would know. He also couldn't pretend to be someone else, since that would be too obvious. So what do you think, Logan? Quinn asked. Will you be able to hack into the school system and add his ID? The problem isn't whether I can do it or not, Quinn. Logan replied. I can. That's like asking if a bee can make honey. The problem is making it all seem natural. Say there are 500 first-year students. Then one day suddenly there are 501 students. The new kid turns up to class and everyone is just meant to accept it? It won't work. Once again, the group were deep in thought. I have an idea, Vorden said. When we went to the planet Kaladi and the Dalki attacked us, didn't they say they couldn't find 3 of the student bodies? That's right, Layla replied. They assumed they had died somewhere deep in the desert and their bodies were eaten. Hearing this started to bring back memories for Quinn. The truth was the Dalki hadn't killed them. It was him that killed them, although no one knew about this fact yet. Well, once Peter learns the transformation ability, why don't we get him to look like one of those students? We can have him appear back near the portal and say he had gotten lost in the desert and came back now, Vorden asked. Now that is big brain thinking, Logan said. He then hopped onto his computer and went over to the marketplace in search of a transformation ability book. It had to be one of the high level to be able to get the finer details right in the face structure. It didn't take long for Logan to find one, due to how unpopular the skill was. It seemed to be a level 5 skill, which was perfect. It would be good enough for Peter to look nearly identical to one of the students, and with Peter's mutant cells being slightly different, it wouldn't show his real level on the watch anyway, only displaying the fake number Logan had entered. Ability book purchased. Hey Logan, you didn't have to do that. I could have paid for it, Quinn said, feeling bad at how much money Logan had spent on him now. Don't worry, Quinn. I'm involved in this too now, and if I didn't want to do it, I would have kicked you all out of this room. Besides, who said I wasn't keeping a tab? I do have to warn you that I do charge quite a lot of interest, Logan said. It was hard for Quinn to tell whether Logan was joking about the whole thing or not. When he said those words, his expression never changed, but Quinn would have liked to think he was cracking a joke. It was nice seeing Logan try to fit in. But this was a different matter. Quinn also didn't want his wallet to take a hit. After purchasing the book and inputting the code, it arrived in only a few seconds right into Logan's room. It will probably take him a few weeks or so for him to learn it, Logan said. For now he can stay in my room. Luckily he doesn't need any food or anything, so as long as he stays here he'll be fine. Quinn didn't like the idea of that. He could imagine either Peter accidentally touching one of Logan's prized possessions, or getting a laser beam shot through the chest. Or Logan would say something that caused Peter to snap. "Let me try something," Quinn said as he walked over and grabbed the book himself. "Level 5 transformation ability book obtained. Would you like to store the book?" "No." "Option to use the ability book on family member Peter. Would you like to use it?" Although Peter didn't have a system ability, Quinn had a feeling something like this might just work. His family was linked through the system. The system had also mentioned, if Peter and Quinn were fighting near each other, Quinn would get the EXP for it. So it gave Quinn hope that just maybe, something like this would work. "Maybe we won't have to wait at all," said Quinn, as he accepted the system's suggestion. The book floated in the air and flew over to where Peter was. The pages turned and turned until they hit the very last one. Then the book started to disintegrate in front of everyone's eyes. Peter Chuck has successfully learned the ability Transform. "Peter, do you want to try transforming into me?" Quinn asked. As a tester, Peter did just that, and slowly his face started to reshape and reform into a second Quinn. It was nearly perfect. There wasn't enough of a difference for someone to notice using their eye. The others watching were amazed by this. Logan was the only one in this room that had an idea of what just happened. While Vorden and Layla had put it down to vampire stuff, they just didn't understand the specifics of what just occurred in front of them. However, there was another vampire in the room who had seen Quinn do something that he had never seen another vampire do before. Just like humans, vampires usually had to take time to learn the abilities that they wanted to learn. Yet, he had just witnessed a vampire learn an ability in an instant. "Just who are you, Quinn?" Fex thought. At that moment, groans could be heard in the room. As they turned around, it seemed that Erin was about to wake up. It was now time to tell her what her fate was going to be. Episode 208, Peter's Change. In the room on Logan's computer, 3 different profiles were displayed. It was displaying information about the 3 missing students from the Dalkey attack. Since the transformation skill was at level 5, Peter was only able to imitate a person's facial structure. There wasn't anything he could do about a person's height or physical appearance. This also meant that he wouldn't be able to pretend to be a girl unless one had the same body type as his. Higher level transformation ability would allow him to do this in the future, but they weren't available in the marketplace. Logan decided to look at the height details and images, trying to select the best one that would suit Peter. Out of the 3, there were 2 that matched Peter the closest. Now, while deciding between which one, Logan opted for the one with less background information, and with an ability they could pass off that wouldn't cause too much trouble. Their options were a wind user or the duplication user. In the end, they decided to go for the duplication ability user. It was the best option for them. Peter would no longer have to go to the elemental class and try to pretend to be able to use a certain type of ability. This would make Borden's job a lot easier, and he would also be able to join Quinn's beast weapon class, allowing him to keep a close eye. Hearing this, Quinn wanted to protest the idea. Out of the 3 men from Ben's group that had attacked him in the desert that day, 2 had died while 1 had lived. That was the same person they were suggesting Peter act as. Quinn had left him in the desert after removing his memory, but he never came back, nor did the search party find him. Perhaps while he was laid on the desert floor, a beast did come and kill him. After thinking about it, he realized if he hadn't come back now, the chances were really low of a person returning. He was most likely dead. Peter looked at the screen and carefully started to morph his face. The student had medium-length brown hair, and one of the finer details about him was he would often wear a bandana that cut off one side of his hair while the other remained up. Finally, Peter would no longer go by his name in the school and would now be known as P.O. Blank. Quinn took a long stare at Peter and realized this might have been the better option for him. If he was to look at Peter, A person he had killed or seen die right in front of him day and night. He didn't know how that would make him feel. While this all was happening, the groans from the back were heard as Erin lifted her body off the bed and touched her head. It was ringing with dull pain, and her face felt slightly numb, similar to a migraine. When she looked up, she could see the faces of everyone staring at her, and a person she had never seen before. "Who the heck is the new guy?" Erin groaned. No one said a word, and after a few moments, she started to remember everything that had happened to her. Her last words with Jack and what he had planned to do with them. "No, no, no!" she started to scream. There was no need for her to try to use her ability. She could feel that it was no longer with her. But just in case, she tried to form ice in her hand. Again and again, but there was no result. "Calm her down before someone outside hears us," Vorden said. Layla quickly rushed over to her side, but Erin couldn't help but scream in anger and sadness. The others had never seen this side of Erin before. It was different for most of them, who had been weak their whole life. If their powers were taken away, it wouldn't make much of a difference. But for Erin, she was high up. Of course, the others didn't know the full story about how much everything meant to her. Losing her ability felt like she had lost everything. All she had left was her swordsmanship, and after meeting Fex, she could tell she was nothing special. "Do you want us to be caught?" Logan said, as he threw out a circular device towards Erin. The device opened up midair, just before reaching her mouth, and wrapped around it like a tight-fit mask. The screams had stopped, but the tears continued to run down her face. "Erin, I know you are upset, but right now your situation involves all of us," Logan explained. "I can't have your selfish actions harm me or the others. Now, Layla, I believe you would be the best person to explain to her what we have planned." While Erin's mouth was covered, it was a lot easier for Layla to explain. It gave no option for Erin to complain in between, and allowed Layla to explain everything. She explained how Jack had sent out a search party for her and Peter, how she was part of Pure, and they would be sending her to Pure for protection. Logan then walked up to Erin and had a few words to say himself, before taking the device off her mouth. "Now if you scream, it goes back on. The situation is not favorable for any of us, and please trust me, we went through all the options. I even looked into your background, and thought about seeing if we could send you back to your family, but that's not possible. Staying with Pure is the only option we have." Logan took off Erin's wristwatch, and made a few adjustments to it before placing it back. "We are a bit wary of Pure, so if you need any emergency help, you can contact me through that, although I doubt we will be able to do anything. Do you understand?" Erin nodded calmly. Rather than angry or sad, she seemed to be going through a different stage right now. She was in shock. As soon as the mask was taken off, she started to look at Layla. "Will you be coming with me?" Erin asked with pain in her voice. Layla looked in her eyes and held both of her hands before shaking her head. She knew the next words would hit her hard. "No, I can't. I still have my mission here," Layla replied. At that moment, Erin snapped her hands back. Everything was getting a little too much for her. Her abilities had been taken. She was being treated as a convict by the school. Jack was possibly after her life, and now she had no choice but to join a terrorist group. Yet why did this have to happen to her? Was it just her bad luck? Then she started to remember there was one more person who was going through something similar. "What about Peter? Will he be coming along with me as well?" Although Erin didn't get along with Peter, if she was going through this struggle with someone she knew, it would at least be better than going through it alone. The student who Erin didn't recognize stood next to Quinn, stepped forward, and his face started to morph back into his old self. "But how? Didn't have an earth ability?" Erin asked. "How did he learn that?" The sound of a little excitement and hope could be felt in her voice. "That's because Peter is no longer human," Quinn explained. "When a human turns into a vampire or vampire subclass, they use their old ability as their body changes. Logan's guess is it has something to do with the cells in the body being different. Essentially, it's like getting a new body, so Peter was able to learn a new ability." Hearing these words from Quinn suddenly gave Erin an idea. She had lost her ability, but not all hope was gone. If what Quinn was saying was correct, there was a chance for her to get her powers back. She stood up from the bed and said, "Quinn, I want you to make me a vampire. I want you to turn me like how you turned Peter." Episode 209, Someone on the Inside. After hearing about how Peter was able to obtain a new ability, in her haste, Erin started to gain hope once again. If there was a way for her to get it back, a chance to return to her former self, then she would take it. Before, she would have never considered it. there were too many downsides, which she saw both Peter and Quinn deal with. As long as she grew her ice abilities slowly with higher grade ability books, or if she was to find a good teacher, she would be able to progress up the ranks and eventually become a force to be reckoned with. Still, right now, that wasn't the case, and her best option was right in front of her. What she didn't realize, though, was the grave mistake that she had just committed. While asking Quinn to turn her, she had mentioned a particular detail that someone in the room wasn't quite sure about. Even now, Quinn was peeking at Fex from the corner of his eyes. He was trying to gauge Fex's reaction. Many times before, Fex had mentioned the fact that he thought Peter had been created by an irresponsible leader. However, Fex didn't have much of a reaction. He continued to stand there, without any reaction. The reason was that he had already assumed Quinn was the one who turned Peter. He wouldn't have been so loyal without his master by his side. It also explained why Quinn wasn't trusting Fex in the first place, other than his shadow ability. Peter was illegal, and if the council ever found out about Peter, both of them would be executed. The reason why Fex didn't have much of a reaction to what Aaron was suggesting, though, was because of their vampiric limits. Even without the laws, a regular vampire could turn at most one person. Someone like Fex could turn two, and he would be permitted to do so when he ascended to the noble rank. He knew Quinn's strength, and never thought he would be able to turn more than one person, so Aaron's suggestion meant nothing. Seeing that Fex wasn't making a big deal out of everything, Quinn decided to continue. "Aaron, even if I wanted to, I can't. It wouldn't change the situation we're in," Quinn explained. "What do you mean?" she asked, slightly annoyed, taking a step forward. It seemed like Aaron was starting to regain her snappy confidence back, but Quinn could also tell this meant her emotions were all over the place, and she was still very much unstable. Taking a step back, Quinn tried his best to explain. "First, I think you're forgetting the main issue here. It isn't that your ability was stolen from you, but it's the fact that the school and Jack are after you. Either way, we need to hide you somewhere, and going to Pure is the best option. If I was to turn you and you were to turn into a ghoul, like Peter, or maybe something else, once they found out, who knows what they would do to you." Although Layla felt a little hurt about the others talking badly about the organization she was in, at the same time, she couldn't intervene and argue her case. If they did find out Aaron was a type of vampire they didn't know about, who knows what they would do to her? Even Layla didn't know. And the last issue, say you turn into a vampire, then what? Do you want the same ability as Peter? To transform? I would have thought you would have at least wanted something similar, if not better than your ice abilities. Fex can teach me his string ability, or your shadow ability looks nice as well, Aaron snapped back, forgetting about the first point Quinn had made and only focusing on the fact that Quinn would be able to help her gain power. What Aaron didn't know was Quinn had learned his ability through an unusual method. He hadn't practiced the techniques written down in the book. Everything just worked through the system. There was no way for him to explain or teach someone how to use the shadow ability. And unless Aaron was part of Fex's family, he wouldn't be happy to teach her to use his strings either. "Perhaps I should take over the explaining," Logan said as he moved forward. The reason Peter got the transformation ability in the first place was so he could hide in plain sight. We are currently using one of the missing male students from the planet Cowdy. If you did change your mind and gave in, ending up with the transformation ability, it would still be impossible to hide you, Aaron. There have been no missing female students since the start of the term. They find you, and you will be taken to the dungeon. If Pure finds out that you have been turned into a vampire, you will probably experience an even worse fate. Hearing their explanation wasn't calming Aaron down at all. Instead, it was making her feel drained and defeated. She thought that perhaps Quinn was her scapegoat. "What's the point of me being protected by Pure? Am I meant to just be some type of princess that can't fight for herself?" she complained. "It won't be like that," Layla replied. "There are many people in Pure who are of equal strength to those with powers to the outside. Look at our leader for a clear example." The Pure leader was well known around the world, and that was mainly because of one reason. They were one of only 2 people currently in the world to possess a demon-class weapon, the highest-tiered beast weapon that is currently known. Right now, Quinn could see that Layla was acting rash, and perhaps wasn't thinking properly, so he thought there might be just one thing he could say to calm her down. "Why don't we make a deal? Quinn said. Stay with Pure for now. Once this whole thing blows over or we finish school, come back to me. If you still wish for me to turn you into a vampire, then I will. Please understand, Aaron, none of us can do anything when we are dead. She looked into his eyes for a while, before eventually giving his answer, and finally shook Quinn's hand. Sometimes you make some sense, she said. Finally, the matter had been settled, and a plan set. Peter would at some point appear in the portal room, claiming to be Pio, the student who had gone missing on the last outing, while Aaron would go to Pure for now, then perhaps return to Quinn's side in the future. What do we need to do to send Aaron to Pure then? Vorden asked. It's not exactly like we can just walk out the front door of this place. Students have tried leaving before, and it's nearly impossible. Logan, do you have an answer? Quinn asked. Unfortunately not, Logan replied. These military bases are strange. Quite honestly, even I don't know where we are located at the moment. I can disable the tracker and you can try going outside, but we need a vehicle of some sort, or maybe we might need a ship depending on where we are. We have Pure members stationed on nearly every planet, except for a few red planets, Layla said. We won't need to go outside, but just get Aaron to the portal room. That's no good, Logan said. It seems like after the incident last time with a couple of students being pushed into one of the portals, they have been stricter about the security there. Vorden and Quinn gave each other a glance before both turned their heads at Peter. While looking around the room for a solution, Fax spotted the strange, square-shaped device that was located in Logan's room. He noticed it almost instantly. It was a teleporter, but not just any type. It was the same type of teleporter as they used on his planet. But this wouldn't be of any help to them at all. The last place Fax wanted to go was back home, and the others would be made into food in an instant if they were taken there. He did, however, decide to make note of where it was, just in case he ever decided to go back. How about Fax's mind control? Aaron said. Couldn't he tell them to go away or remove their memories? If they are adults, it would be much harder than before, Fax replied. Besides, right now I'm guessing there will be a lot of people covering that area. If I wanted to get out of this place, the portal room would be the first place I would think of. So there's no way we can pull off something as similar as we did against True Dream, not unless we had someone on the inside. The last words Fax had spoken gave Quinn an idea. It was a risky one, but he had a gut feeling that he would be able to help. He was already keeping Quinn's huge, so there was some trust between them, and he felt like if there was one person that was on the right side of justice, it would be him. Then we have no choice, Quinn said. We need to ask Leo for help. Episode 210. Will he help? The words that came out of Quinn's mouth surprised them all. This also included Vorden, who felt like he was the closest to him. Why would you suggest that? Vorden said. Leo is a sergeant, and although he isn't under Duke, he is under Nathan, who is ultimately under Paul, the head general. It's clear that Leo is working for them, or at least he takes direct orders from them. It was a simple deduction that Vorden had made, and it would be right to assume so, but Quinn didn't believe it. Well, maybe I can change your mind about him, Quinn said. First of all, I'm pretty sure he knows I'm a vampire. Let me change that. I'm 100% sure he knows that I'm not human, and the same could be said for Fex and Peter. Wait a minute, Aaron called out. Is that why he gives you special treatment? Now that I think about it, it all makes sense. I'm not sure about that one, Quinn said, letting out a chuckle. But I'm sure his ability has something to do with it. He knew I was different from the beginning, and has safeguarded my secret until this day. Leo is different from the other teachers. He once inquired about whose side I was on. It made me wonder about a couple of things. Leo himself didn't align with the military. He is on the side of humanity. This was what he was checking up on with me that day. As long as there is a threat to humanity, he will protect us. Logan then quickly hopped onto his computer and started to type away, checking to see if there was any information he could bring upon Leo, if at all. So, is this a hunch? Vorden inquired. Isn't it too risky to go on this journey just based on a hunch? I too am in favor of talking to Leo. I think it is a good idea, Aaron added. I agree he's different from the other teachers. Remember how he saved us from the Dalki attack that one time? And during our lessons, he would continuously give me tips about my swordsmanship. Also, it seemed he treated everyone the same no matter what. The way he acted just didn't fit in with the way the world is right now. Usually, a teacher would choose to focus only on the promising students, trying to please the upper ranks. but he never did anything of that sort. I respect him as a teacher, and if me leaving this place is based on whether or not we can trust Leo, then I would bet on him over any of the other teachers. Isn't Leo the guy I fought with? Fex said. I mean, if it's him, he seemed like a pretty cool guy. I know, but we don't go trusting people based on how cool they are, Vorden replied. Nah, I guess you're right, Fex replied. Otherwise, you guys would have trusted me from the beginning, right? He said as he swiped back a single strand of hair that had appeared in front of his face. Once again, Logan projected the information about Leo onto the screen. Most news articles and information about Leo had to do with his accomplishments during the last war. He stood out due to the amount of Dalki he had killed, despite being a lowly private at the time. Here you go, Logan said. It looks like you might be onto something after all. It says Leo readily refused to join the military and only wanted peace after the war. However, he did agree to fight once again if the Dalki were to invade. At the time, Leo was a bit of a lone wolf who had refused to join any factions, including the Big Four. The military saw this as a chance to grab him up, but it proved difficult. In the end, Leo agreed at a request. He would join as a teacher. Judging by this, it is as you say. Perhaps he isn't as closely aligned with the military as the others here are. It was a risk, and others knew it would be, but if Erin was happy to go through with it, then she should at least have some say in what they were planning to do with her. Suddenly, Logan leapt out of his chair and started to search around his room for some items. He went through crates and crates of stuff until he had finally found what he was looking for. After pulling out the strange-looking object, he went back to his computer to fiddle with a few more things. A bright light emerged from the projector, which used to display the hologram so far. It now displayed a solid wall of green. Which one of you is the best at acting here? Logan inquired. The others didn't know who to look at, but eventually, they all directed their gaze at Vorden. Even Quinn didn't know why he did this. But based on the numerous ways Vorden could express himself, he felt him to be the perfect fit for the task at hand. Logan then paced near Vorden, and without even asking for his consent, he tried to put the strange-looking helmet device on his head. Unfortunately, there was quite a height difference between the two. Can you not see what I'm trying to do? Bend down, you dumb giant, Logan shouted. Vorden immediately bent down as little Logan placed the strange helmet on top of his head. The helmet mainly went around his forehead and had unusual mechanical arms that came outward. Even if you go to Leo and he agrees to help, the security around everywhere is going to be tough. This is the only thing I can think of, which might get them to lower their guard a bit, Logan said. The strange helmet thing? Vorden replied, his tone strange. This here's a facial recognition device. It can track the smallest of details and all the little movements of the muscles in your face. What I plan to do is make a video. If we put both Peter and Erin up against the green screen and we have our actor Vorden here, I will be able to create a realistic video. The plan is to pretend the video has been sent from Pure, informing the school that the kids they are looking for have already left the planet and are safe in Pure's hands. That strange helmet device and the green backdrop are to change your appearance to whoever I like. Same with the background. Once they know Pure safely as the two of you, hopefully they will stop searching around as desperately as they are doing now. Quinn was amazed by Logan's thinking ability and thought of all the things he could do with him. He was lucky to have someone like him on his side and would hate to think what it would be to have him as an enemy. A speech was made for Vorden to act out, while Layla was in charge of telling Vorden what to say. It made sense, since she knew what would Pure send to make the video sound more authentic. The speech even ended with a phrase they had never heard before, "May we purify your souls." She explained that it was a type of signature Pure used when they sent things like this to their enemy. It also made the others realize how Layla was living a double life, and perhaps the Layla they knew wasn't real at all. The video was made, and now it was time for them to act. Logan would stay in the room to make sure the file got to the school, while Peter and Erin would remain to hide in the room along with Fex. If an inspection occurred, at most, they would only send 2 people into Logan's room due to his special privileges. As long as that person wasn't overwhelmingly strong in the mind, Fex would be able to clear their memories, as if they never saw anything. Vorden and Quinn would head to Leo and explain the details of what had happened, hoping they would be able to help Erin. While lastly, Layla had her task to do. She had to inform Pure of the plan as well. She was quite nervous about this, as she had broken the rules of Pure and acted on her own. Explaining this meant she would have to receive a punishment. But right now, she didn't care about the consequences. She just wanted her friend Aaron to remain safe. I hope this conversation goes well, Layla thought.